Look at me. Another day. Went 2 days in a row. Wow. I don't know. A lot is happening. Maybe I have a lot to say. I actually am talking a lot more. Even when I meet people, I'm sort of kind of spilling my guts out. I probably need to to, to sort of settle down a little bit when that happens. So just as long as I'm aware of it, that's the good thing. You want to be self-aware. You want to know and understand yourself and why you do things the way you do things, and that is actually not a bad lead-in. And I didn't even think of that. It's not a bad lead-in into the concept here that I'm going to talk about, which is B.F. Skinner and his Skinner box, which is his creation, and of course that's why it's called the Skinner box. B.F. Skinner. Now, I would have to go back and look at details of his life and everything like that. And this is, I mean, I'm going off of information that I learned, 45 years ago or something like that. Maybe not as long, but I've always kept touch with a little bit in the concepts in different ways. So, but anyway, the basics of this, what you need to understand, is stimulus and response. Stimulus and response. Let me say it again. Stimulus and response. Now, the experiment that B.F. Skinner performed with lab rats, and there was nothing that was, these rats were treated well. Oh, and there was no abuse that was involved. Well, wait a minute. Now that I think about some of the experiments, there might have been a little bit of abuse, and I'll tell you about those. But in essence, in the box, there is a light, there is a lever, and there's a chute. And so what happens is, if the light goes on, the rat has its behavior conditioned to hit the lever because it understands that when the lever is hit, there's going to be a pellet that comes out. At least that's what it learns under a series of repetitions. So it's like light, lever, food, right? Reward, stimulus, light, action, lever, or stimulus, that's the response, actually, lever, and then the reward, and the reward is what reinforces the behavior. So again, the light goes on, the rat goes, ha, boom. I press the lever, presto, magic. My pellet, yummy, yummy. Here's the thing. The experiment would be repeated over and over and over. And the rat would get used to and maybe, gain a little weight around the waist. And they started to not send out the pellet with every lever. So the light would go off, the lever would be pushed by the rat, and fucking nothing. The rat's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And the same thing, the light would go on again, press the lever, and no food. What the fuck? But you know what? The rat would keep doing it, no matter what. Even if it understood that the amount of times that it would come out would be minimal, it would still do it. Because it's waiting for that reward. It wants that reward. It's the only thing that it's looking for. You know what that reminds me of? Scratch off lottery tickets. More times than not, there is no reward. But we buy it. We've been conditioned. You not only, here's the thing that is important to understand, that it's not just behavior that's conditioned. Thinking is conditioned as well. What is your assumption And with every religious holiday, there are gifts, 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 gifts. So why wouldn't I want to celebrate? Because I get rewards. That's a positive reinforcement. And you get that positive reinforcement, and the thoughts in your head get sort of tethered around and say, hey, this is a good thing. Religion is good. I get rewards. I get rewards. I get rewards. And I'm going to get a reward. I'm going to get even a final reward. I'm going to get a final reward. They told me there's an invisible authority, and I'm going to go to heaven. Yay! I don't know. Again, I've said this before. I'm not incredibly conspiratorial when it comes to my thinking. I do think that we're sort of cannibalizing ourselves without even realizing it. We do these things to ourselves. And we condition thoughts. For example, I've been saying, and this, there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying, but people will argue this point because they have been conditioned to believe that this is the only way things can get done. The 40-hour work week is modern day slavery. Obesity is the result of the domestication that comes through the modern day slavery because our bodies are not meant to, for example, sit for 8 hours 5 days in a row or more, which some people do. Our bodies are not made for that. This is the slave owner mentality. This is the authoritarian mentality, and people have been convinced because they're children, and this is generational, and this goes on, and we accept it. We say, how long has the 40-hour work week been going on? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I could look at the history and stuff like that, but it's not necessary. Greed, people don't like to think they're greedy. They think, oh no, I'm just taking care of myself. This is natural. You know, they don't realize that the natural is sort of like, you know, there's these different layers. Let's kind of think of ourselves like in like, we're in the ocean, and that some of us live in certain lower levels and others live in higher levels. We're suspended in this area. So if I'm not going to think about what's below me. I'm just going to think about me. And that's what happens. That's what happens to the fat asses that sit on the city commissions. That's what happens with the fat asses that sit over in the county commission. And that's what happens with the fat asses that sit in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, and dumbasses as well. Because again, ideology is a smokescreen for greed. That's all it is, and they're not politicians. They're basically legislation, or what I kind of refer to as power brokers. You think of Wall Street as you think of Wall Street. You have the stockbrokers, and what they're doing is trading stocks and buying and selling and trying to negotiate in different ways to maximize earnings and stuff like that. Same thing on Pennsylvania Avenue, except instead of stocks, what we have is legislation, power. And private interests who lobby, these power brokers, not politicians, these power brokers, because the ideology is a smokescreen. The ideology is meaningless. There is no weight to the words. All this talk about the MAGA maggots are morons, and the reason is that you want to go to the past. You cannot go to the past. You cannot. You can stop the clock or move forward, but you cannot go back to the past. It's just impossible. It is ignorant. It is stupid. Now, I don't know if you know this, but on average, I think at the moment, and these numbers change, but I believe that there's about 200 people that are born every minute on the planet. And there's about 120 that die every minute. So every minute we net 80 more people on this planet. And the more people there are, the more reiterations of our biological system and different combinations and permutations, which also includes different types of manifestations along, the sexual identity spectrum, or simply the identity spectrum, because there is no uh, definition. This is free form. We are free form. It's open architecture. We do not stop becoming other things ever. And we're still animals. We are still animals. Now, the human element is possible, but most of us aren't able to reach that level of actualization because the activities that help us get to that level of actualization are suppressed. How are they suppressed? Through behavioral conditioning. I might have written it backwards. I might have to correct that. And behavioral conditioning. So birthdays. If I were to be a parent again and have a firstborn, they would not have one single birthday party because being born is not an accomplishment. And surviving 1 year in this society is not an accomplishment either. So there's nothing to celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate. But you know why parents do it more than anything? Because they want to show off to their friends. It's not because of the kids. I mean, I would want to spend the entire day with my child and dedicate that day to my child and let it know that I love my child dearly and that I'm there for them and I want to help them grow and become strong individuals that can fend for themselves. You got to be really upfront with people, and the communication process is really bad too. But yeah, I mentioned this to somebody um, the other day. I think it was yesterday, and I actually, I talked to a worker about this, and she listened to me, and she said, "That's an interesting thought." So the next time you're up for a performance review at your job, tell them you're burning out on your job. Tell them you like your job, but the same routine day in and day out, and blah blah blah. It's just you can't. And so what would be ideal, you say, is just keep paying me the same amount of money, but take 8 hours off my schedule. And really, when you start to think about that, and I actually started thinking about that a little bit more, and I would think, personally, as a business owner, if I had my personal business, my workers would be making more money than I would, especially if I wasn't doing much, because I wouldn't deserve it. I wouldn't be doing the work. I would pay them because they're helping me with my business, and I am receiving some kind of residuals with it that help me maintain a reasonable lifestyle, nothing extravagant or, where I need to blow my wad every fucking day or anything like that, because that's not the way I am. It's like I don't need to consume much. I don't have very many needs, but they teach us to need things. That is another part of the behavioral. There are things that we are taught to need that we don't need. And of course, needing, that's conditioning in our head, or what some people might refer to as brainwashing, but there's different techniques for that. And I said, and really, we can take the concept that I'm going with, the 40-hour work. We can say, why are we in such a rush? Where the hell are we trying to go? I mean, we're here. The rush might be because we have to meet the needs of those 80 people. So maybe we need to fucking slow down. But they don't want you to slow down, because at this point in time, humans, especially the ones that don't own property, are disposable. That's what the homeless are, abandoned humans. They've basically victimized by the system, chewed up and destroyed. And we all bear responsibility. The churches bear responsibility. The government bears responsibility. You bear responsibility. I bear responsibility. And I try to do what I can. We are too focused on ourselves, but not in a real way. because we're very superficial. We're very shallow. We don't go deep. Because why? It's not our fault. Because they, it's massage. Religion, especially, labor work right now and politics is about control, controlling the population and getting what you need out of it. Raw material, and devalued. Minimum. Don't let anybody set your value. That's the thing. They say, "Oh, you have to accept these. This is the structure, and you have to accept the structure." I don't mind following certain outlines. I think that it's good. It's just not like just being crazy all over the place or anything like that. But so it doesn't seem like I talked very much about B.F. Skinner, right? Um, but there were other experiments. I kind of alluded to the fact that I would mention this, uh, that involved shocking the rat, um, and sometimes I believe I'd have to go back, but I think that it would power through the shock to hit the lever. So, in other words, people will accept an extraordinary amount of pain to get that little fucking reward. You're being conned big time. There's no need for the 40-hour week. No need whatsoever. There's no justification for the large disparities in income distribution. And the only explanations are, that what I mentioned before, when we're at a certain level, things at our level seem normal. And so anything that's outside of the normal, we kind of look down on or frown upon, Of course, if, we look up because up is higher than us and it's more impressive. And there's things that we might emulate and everything like that. And we look down and that shit is ugly down there. Look at those people. Look at the fucking crap that they do. There's this, you've got to look at yourself. You have to watch your behavior. You have to understand your behavior. You have to understand why you do the things that you do. Why do you drink the soda? Why do you eat the pizza? Why do you drink alcohol? Why do you buy gifts? Consume. Consumer. They want you to consume. They want you to drink. They want you to be distracted with stupid nonsense like football. I understand that people make a living. That's the way they get the buy-in. There are some people that accept the system, despite the fact that we are the largest manufacturer and distributor and sales agent globally for weapons. That's our bread and butter. That's how this country makes a living. Everything. And what's more egregious than that? Of course, all the manufacturers, why does the military budget do what it does? Well, because, of course, nothing is going to try to say, oh, I don't need to be around anymore. Everybody wants to feed their mouth. So these CEOs, these corporate, the executives and managers and everything like that, every year they have to buy more weapons. They have to. Because if they don't, then their business model collapses. This is a shell game. And we're being fucked over big time. The corporations, they're the ones, the wealthy should pay for the fucking military. And that's it. Poor people don't need, people who don't have any property don't be needing to pay for that shit because they don't have anything to take away. They're not coming to take our shit. Ooh, getting a little worked up this morning. Behavioral conditioning. It is a real thing. And we do it to ourselves. And it is generational. And we don't even know it. We don't understand it. So it's important to try to break up patterns, break up sleep patterns, break up all kinds of patterns to get yourself used to sort of an open architecture art form, as opposed to narrowing, yourself into this rabbit hole, which is what we tend to do. Here's another thing that I was thinking about. Wouldn't it be cool if, and to me, this would make more sense, if a person that works at a corporation, I worked for 18 years in white collar corporate America, in Citibank. And it would be interesting. Now, Wall Street and all that is completely manufactured wealth. That is completely manufactured. It's a playground for, for the 1% kids and grandkids and stuff like that. That's what that is. Fuck, where was I going with that? I might have forgotten. Let me think. Playground, stockbrokers. Damn. Oh, well. It happens. It happens sometimes. Now you can put in the comments and refresh my memory if you want, and I'll come back to it. But, we got to break up patterns. Think of things in a different way. Stop absorbing and start emitting. People don't have balance. Obesity is systemic. The person that's fat is not necessarily completely guilty for being obese, and shouldn't necessarily be criticized, because they are victims of a system. You see people like that work at hospitals that are obese and make minimum wage. Why? Because they don't have time to work out, because they are enslaved in their jobs, sitting at this fucking desk for 8 hours and eating food, and then tired from fucking dealing with all this shit. And so all they want to do is block shit out and fucking go home and watch TV. Behavioral conditioning. Behavioral conditioning. Behavioral conditioning. Be mindful. Look into it more. Put down a question if you have one. I think I'm going to stop here. Relatively short, I think. I'm not really keeping track of the time. But like I always say, just remember, the past is an illusion. We don't know what the fucking, the people that came here in the 1700s were not heroes or anything. They were ugly people. The present is confusion. It's just confusion. There's so many things going on, and people sort of they create their own boxes, and they think they're really they're really comfortable in their boxes, and think their box is the best box in the world. Like Corey Mills, and I'll talk about him a little bit more in another opportunity, in an episode coming up soon. Who is the representative that the Volusia County sent overwhelmingly to Washington. But it's not because he's anything special. It's not because he's smart. It's just because there are a lot of fat, greedy, stupid fucks in this county. So I mean, half of his support is just meaningless. But going off topic, I've said enough. I think provided some food for thought. So, no, I didn't finish what I was saying. So the past is an illusion, the present is confusion, and the future, boing, your decision. Take it easy.